What's going on, guys? Faith Riding Johnny here. Today I'm going to show you guys how to install an OTB upper triple clamp on the Honda Grom today. I'm going to go over the tools you'll need, the process, and the features and benefits, and the wrap up when we're done. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so let's go over the triple clamp first, because I know that's the first thing you guys are going to do when you get yours in the mail. That's the first thing I did. I opened it up, looked at it, and checked it out. So first you'll have this cover over it that tells you a little bit of information about what's included. Also, it just kind of gives you some warnings and this and that. Read over it, because like I said, it changes the geometry a little bit. It does affect the steering in a good way, and it helps you out. But that's there for your information. Also, what's included is the triple clamp itself. This thing is beautiful. You can see all the CNC machine cutouts on the back. The nuts, or I should say bolts, are included, and they are in the triple clamp themselves, so you don't have to use the stock ones. So that's right there. You also have your spacers. These are for your stock handlebar risers. If you have aftermarket ones, you will not need these, but since I do have the OEM handlebar risers and Pro Taper handlebars, I do need to use these, and if you do have a similar setup or the stock handlebars, you'll need these as well. And I'll show you how to install that with my setup. Next thing is the ignition switch holder. This attaches to the OTB triple clamp. This is all machined and beautiful as well. I'll show you how to install that, and these are the screws that come with it that install the ignition switch holder to the triple clamp. Don't lose these screws. You only have two, so be careful, and finding more of these will be pretty hard. So without further ado, let's get into the tools required, and let's install it. Okay guys, I'm going to go over the tools you'll need to remove and install your new triple clamp. The must-haves are a 1/4-inch drive ratchet. You will need to go with that a 5mm hex socket, as well as a 6mm hex socket. If you have a T-handle or anything like that, that'll work. But you're working in a tight area, so make sure if you can get a ratchet with a short drive hex, that will be ideal. That would be the best for you. Next, you'll need a 3/8 drive ratchet with a 14mm socket. You will need a 1/2-inch drive breaker bar with a 30mm socket. That's to get the big nut off of the triple clamp that attaches to the frame. You'll need a pick or a hook. This will help you get the plastic caps off of the handlebar mounts. And then you will need a Phillips head screwdriver. Also, a rubber hammer would be nice, just in case the stock triple clamp does have trouble coming off. That'll help knock it off and not damage the metal whatsoever. And for convenience, if you have an impact driver, this will help you out. This will save you a little bit of time, but only if you have one. Not necessary for the install or removal, but it's just for convenience. The first thing you want to do is remove your headlight. This is very simple. This is where the 5mm hex socket comes in place with your 1/4-inch drive. But like I said, this is where the convenience comes into play. So I'm going to use it to my advantage and take it off. So it's 4 bolts. You got one on the top, one on the bottom. They come out like so. Like I said, if you have a ratchet, no problem. You can still take them off just as easy. Also, set them somewhere where you're not going to lose them, because these are ones you definitely don't want to lose as well. So the next step is very carefully pry your headlight off. I just kind of work it, just pull the plastics, pull apart. It's very flexible. Once it comes off, it's kind of free, but it's hanging with the headlight cords. What you want to do is you'll just unhook the pins, unhook the connectors. Just two. Just work with it. Be patient. And it comes right off, and you're good to go. Now you've got a little bit more room. You will want the more room to get to everything here. And next, let's move the handlebars. So like I was talking about with my setup, I have the Pro Taper Honda Mini handlebars on the stock OEM handlebar risers. So what you want to do is you want to take your 5mm and 1/4-inch drive ratchet, and you want to take this off. And just as a note, I do have the only race version triple clamp that OTB has made for the stock OEM handlebar risers. If you order the race version, you are with the M10 hardware where you don't have to use those spacers. If you do have the stock handlebar risers and you order the regular mount, not the race version, not with all the cutouts, that will bolt up just as well, and you'll have to use the spacer on that one. But I just wanted to clarify that for you guys while we start tearing this down. So let's take this off real quick. Once you get that bolt out, and like I said, if you have the OEM handlebars, you won't have this, so this won't be in the way, but then that'll access you to your 4 bolts that hold on the handlebars. Now I went ahead and moved the 3 other plastic covers, but I'm going to show you guys how to remove that. Your pick, your T-handle, whatever it may be. Sorry if it's a little blurry, but if you have a L shape like this, it will help you pop it off. There is no best way from what I understand going about this. All I can tell you is to put it up under the cap, basically put your pick in between the gap and the plastic cap, and just kind of work it up until it kind of pops in like so, and then you just pry it off, and that'll or that'll grant you access, I should say, to the hex bolts that are holding down the handlebars. The next step is to remove those, and this is where your 6mm comes in handy, because your 5 is going to be too small. For me, this is where the convenience comes into play. Like I said, if you have a ratchet, no big deal. Now, I tend to loosen these up in an X pattern. It probably doesn't matter, but just for goodness sake, that's the way I do it. Your handlebars will come loose. That's okay. But once you got everything loose, keep your handlebars steady. Take everything off. And again, set everything aside so you don't lose it and it's all together. You don't have to undo all your controls. Best thing to do is just pull your handlebars forward a little bit, out of the way, and that'll give you plenty of room to work with here. Next thing you want to loosen up is the triple clamp OEM hex bolts that tighten to the forks. Just slip it right on in there, loosen it on up. And you don't have to take these all the way out, guys. Just enough to where you can actually loosen up the tension on the fork. So do that to one side. If you turn them a little bit, that'll help you. So just loosen them up a little bit. Like I said, just to break the tension free. Next, we're gonna undo that big bolt right there. That's where your breaker bar and your 30mm comes into play. Now I kind of cheated a little bit and I already had this pre-loosened, but worst case scenario, if you can't get it loosened, just put your foot under the front tire as you loosen it, fight the pressure a little bit, and loosen it up. There's a washer underneath this, so please do yourself a favor, make sure you keep that, and make sure you keep that together as well. You are going to go ahead and remove your triple clamp. So just kind of pry up a little bit. Don't force nothing too hard. Just kind of work one side to the other, push up a little bit, and it'll come right off. There we go. And also notice, did you see how the gauge moved forward a little bit? The gauge cluster and the handlebars. There is these prongs, or the skeleton thing that mounts to the lower triple clamp and the upper triple clamp, and that is pretty much, they call it a fairing stay, but with this being not a sport bike, I call it a headlight stay. This will move forward a little bit, but make sure when we install it, we'll make sure we line it back up. The next thing you want to do is undo your ignition switch from your triple clamp. Very simple. It is 2 Phillips head screws right there. And these are small and very unique as well. You don't want to lose these. They are teeny tiny. Put them somewhere where you're not going to lose them. I use a magnetic tray for all my bolts, so when I'm taking everything apart, I just set it in there and it sticks to it. I don't have to worry about kicking it. I can stick it to the wall or the toolbox and it's fine. So again, take that one out. Oh, that's something you don't want to do. Now have your stock triple clamp off of your bike. You can feel how heavy and gargantuous and monstrous this thing is. Now we can remove the handlebar mounts, or risers as I should say. Like I said, if you guys are using aftermarket handlebar risers, this will be a little bit different for you, but pretty much the process is all the same. Next, let me show you guys the best way and easiest way to remove these. Okay guys, so the best way I've found to remove these handlebar risers is to have yourself a vice grip. Or a vise I should say. Now if you don't have one and you have a friend around, you know, maybe you could put some vice grips around these while you loosen up the 14mm nut on the back. But if you're by yourself, this is the easiest way I found to do it. Put a cloth around it for protection so you don't scratch up the metal or anything like that. Let me do this one first so you guys can see it. Drop it down right there in the vise. Just make sure she's nice and snug. Doesn't have to be too tight. These things aren't there extremely tight, but this is where your 3/8 drive ratchet and your 14mm comes into play. Just put it on there and work it right off. Keep in mind, you will need to use your nut and your stock washer again, so make sure you set those aside. You need to pop out your handlebar risers. These will loosen right out, if you will. And just as a note for all you guys, like I said in the last video, the OEM triple clamp has these rubber bushings on them. You do not use these for the new triple clamp. Next thing you do is remove the other one. You will be ready to install these on your new triple clamp and install the new triple clamp. Now that you have both of your handlebar risers removed, you can start assembly on your OTB upper triple. First thing you'll do is take one of your handlebar risers, go ahead and slide it through on the new clamp. Next thing you'll want to do is take one of your spacers. Now remember, this is to keep this in mind, if you're using the OEM handlebar risers, you will need to use these. If not, you don't have to, but that just fills in the gap to where this that extra space is, so it'll make a nice snug fit. So put the spacer on there. Next, take your OEM washer, put it back on there on top of that. Then what you want to do is you want to take your OEM nut. Like I said, we're keeping all this. You want to go ahead and put it on there. So run it down until you can't tighten it no more. Take your ratchet, and we're just going to snug it up. We're not going to tighten it down all the way. We're just going to snug it up a little bit until where we can move it just a little bit with our hands, because we've got to line it up and tighten it. So go ahead and do the next one, and then we'll line everything up. You got both of your handlebar risers installed on your clamp. Now the next thing you got to do, and the last thing you got to do to install, I guess this before you put it on the bike, is going to be the ignition switch holder. Now this goes, it looks like it can go one of two ways. It only goes one way. What you want to do is you want to install it with the ignition switch side facing, you guessed it, the ignition switch. That way when you mount it on there, you can put it on there. But first you've got to install it to the clamp. What you want to do is you want to get your two little screws and install it to the clamp. And don't forget guys, when you do install these parts, don't forget to use just a little bit blue Loctite, not too much, but just enough. Then it's just for security, so that way you don't have nothing vibrating or shaking apart as you go down the road, because it would be bad if you did just so happen to lose your screws for your ignition switch and your ignition switch fall out. So make sure you use just a little bit, but don't overdo it. Installation is opposite of removal, if you will. You just put the screws back in there, make sure you line it up. I know it's very hard for you guys to see right now because my hand's in the way, but again, it's just self-explanatory. And he does have everything machined out, so it does set in there, so you don't have the screws poking out or anything like that. And again, just snug. You don't want to over tighten it, but tighten it just enough to where it is snug and it's got a good hold. As now that you got your ignition switch all on there, what we're going to do is we're going to install the upper triple clamp as well as the headlight stay bracket. Now, I found the easiest way to do this is flip the handlebars back over. I know, again, it's going to be hard for you guys to see, but like I said, the fairing stay that pops right out, you just want to move that back into place. Make sure everything's lined up on the bottom. Make sure everything's lined up on the top, and just go ahead and slide it on down. Just push it on there, give it a good snug push. Make sure it's seated in there, and double check everything. And it is, so it's not too hard. You might fight with it just a little bit, but be patient, work with it, don't over force anything, and it'll go on just fine. So no worries, it fits just like OEM. Next thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and put on your washer. Like I said, we're keeping that again. Go ahead and put on your cap nut. Get that started on there. Now you don't have to tighten it all the way down. Again, this is just kind of snugging it on there. But next thing you want to do is go ahead and tighten these hex bolts right there. It's the same size as the ones we remove. It's the 5mm. So go ahead and snug them up. Again, we're not tightening. We're not doing a final tighten on everything yet. We're just snugging everything. Making sure everything looks good, it fits properly. Again, a little blue Loctite on these wouldn't hurt either. You don't necessarily have to do it on the stem nut just because it's not necessarily required. It doesn't have any on it from the factory. Once you've got everything set, you can go ahead and begin tightening the stem nut here, and then you want to basically finish up tightening everything on the forks. You want to set the clamp, then set the forks so everything's tightened down properly. Now, for you people who have access to a torque wrench and you want to torque this to the exact manufacturer specifications, it is 65 foot-pounds of torque. So I'm going to do that just because I am one of those guys that want the exact torque specs. If not, you guys can tighten this by hand and it's really not going to hurt anything. Because honestly, it's not gonna come loose unless you just feather tighten it. And the best thing I do is I put my foot on the right side of the bike on the tire, and I basically just tighten it up and use my foot to basically fight back and torque till it clicks. To finish up the triple clamp installation is just tighten the clamp down on the forks. Again, what I like to do is I just like to work my way back and forth, snugging up each one until they're all the way down. And then I basically do a 1/4 inch turn once it's tight. That way, I know I've got it nice and tight. So that is the installation on the triple clamp. All you have to do now is finish up installing your handlebars. Again, opposite of removal. Best way to do it is sit on the seat and line the handlebars up to your preference. Alright guys, so once you put your headlight back on and get your handlebars all tight, finish everything up, the only thing you have left to do now is go ride it. Just a couple things to remember is the geometry has changed just a little bit. Again, what that means for you is just better overall experience. Your turn in is a lot easier. The feel back or force back from the road is more intense than through the stock one because you don't have those rubber bushings anymore. And overall, just your long distance riding or racing is going to be much more easier on you because you're not having to overwork the bike and over exaggerate your turns. The bike's more nimble, it's a lot, it's crisper, it's sharp, and it's very, very fun and easy to ride. with this triple clamp. I would like to thank OTB Prototypes for making such an awesome product and letting me try it out and show you guys how to install it. Their website, their information will be in the description below. Go check it out, follow them on Instagram, like them on Facebook, and most of all, go check out their website and get these products. We've got a lot more in store for you. I've got a lot more stuff coming out for you guys. We're going to do more how-to videos on more OTB products, so be on the lookout for that. Thanks again, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any questions about this setup, any suggestions, or any ideas you have for future videos, or what you would like to see from OTB or myself included, comment down below and let me know. Other than that, ride safe, have fun, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.